Cam Newton has been talking about Brock Purdy being this game manager for a very, very long time at this point, and he doubled down by listing his top 10 players, on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, what's actually kind of fascinating about this was, if you actually take a look at who he named, let's bring it up right now, he listed 9 guys. He listed only 9 guys when it comes to his top 10 49ers list. And for those who are listening on Spotify, I read it to you. So I don't know if he was supposed to put this in any particular order, but he did say that Christian McCaffrey 1, Trent Williams 2, Debo 3, Brandon Ayuk 4, George Kittle 5, Nick Bosa 6, Fred Warner 7, Dre Greenlaw 8, and Brock Purdy at number 9. So this was his list. He didn't list anyone else. Maybe Eric Armstead. Maybe you add him to the list. I'm not entirely sure, but that was his top 10, or I guess top 9 technically, 49er list. I want to know, do you agree or disagree with Cam Newton's take that it doesn't matter what he's been doing so far, because Brock Purdy is not the number 1 player on his offense or a top 3 player on his team, he has to be a game manager and he can never be a game changer like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, any one of these quarterbacks. Do you agree or disagree with Cam Newton?
I totally disagree. I think that Brock Purdy has played very well this year. He was in consideration for MVP for a while there. He had some ups and downs during the season. He had 3 games he lost in a row there. Pieces were missing at that point. Other players injured, and the offense kind of lost its mojo and didn't have its rhythm. And he played poorly during those games, and he got beat badly by the Ravens. Those were his low moments, but he had some pretty high moments too. He can throw the ball well. He throws it very accurately. He knows where to go with the ball. His turnover ratio is low. His touchdown ratio is high. In the playoffs, he's come up big. When they were behind, he kept his cool, and they caught up and won the game against the Lions by by 3 points, but it really was 10. I mean, it's kind of almost
Fair.
garbage time when the Lions got their 7 points to bring it within 3. In that game, he showed that he can improvise. He ran on several plays to get first downs in critical moments. So I think that's the Cam Newton is wrong, and I don't think on any team the quarterback who plays as well as Brock Purdy plays winds up number 9 and as the best player on the team, because he handles the ball on every play, and he did a damn good job this year with it.
I'm going to agree with you that he did a very good job. But I'll give Cam Newton credit when it comes to this. He never called Brock Purdy trash or ever said he was a bad quarterback. And this is where the game manager aspect of it sort of gets a negative connotation. When people call when people call players game managers, normally that's a negative connotation where you're calling them trash or not good enough to compete. And to Cam Newton's credit, he never said Brock Purdy was trash. But I'm going to kind of agree with him because it's very, very difficult to remove Brock Purdy from this team and see how he performs, because that'll probably never happen. We saw something today where the owner of the 49ers was told by Kyle Shanahan back in 2022 that Brock Purdy was the best quarterback out of Trey Lance, Jimmy G, and Purdy. Yet they still started Trey Lance to give him a shot, then replaced him with Jimmy G because they were paying him for that year, and then Brock Purdy was the third option once Jimmy G finished out that 7-3 streak that he had. But Tom Brady was called a game manager. Dak Prescott, he's bad in the playoffs, but Dak Prescott, he's called a game manager according to Cam Newton. Like, game manager, and by the way, I disagree with the fact that Tom Brady was a game manager. Early on, he was. Then you have that middle span where it was, no, he's not a game manager. He's the one making the big-time plays. And even in those Super Bowls, he wasn't a game manager. He was making the come-from-behind wins there. So maybe this negative connotation to, being a game manager is what it is, but I've showed this before and I want to show it again. So we've heard from Trent Williams, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, talking about how Brock Purdy doesn't get the credit he deserves, and I've showed this before and I'll show it again. These were 2 quotes from Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, and I'll read them. So Trent Williams goes, "He's a baller, man. I don't know why that's ever been in question. Just hate to see him get slighted all the time because I feel like he is such a good talent, such a good quarterback. He's the main reason why we're playing so well." Christian McCaffrey goes, "He's such a talented quarterback. He doesn't get enough credit in my eyes at all. He's a great leader, super smart, can make any throw, and just a great guy to be around." Some very, very nice comments. And I showed you this, and you're like, well, it's great things to say about Brock Purdy. And lo and behold, it was on Jimmy G last year. So you can't really take into account when players say, oh, he's a great quarterback. I don't understand why he gets slight all the time. Because they were saying the same criticisms about Jimmy Garoppolo, and yet Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey still stepped up and said, once again, he can make every throw, such a great guy to be around. And then the big one that I think is Trent Williams goes, he's the main reason why we're playing so well. We heard that again about Brock Purdy this year. And I'm not saying Brock Purdy is the same level as Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo because he can make more deep balls. He's not making the crucial mistakes that Garoppolo did, and he's playing much better in the playoffs. But it's true. It's true. He is being as efficient, as effective, just a little bit more than Jimmy Garoppolo was. Because let's go down the resume, shall we? In the years Jimmy Garoppolo was with San Francisco, how many NFC Championship games did he make?
2.
How many has Brock Purdy made so far?
1.
2. Well, he's made 2. He made 2.
That's right.
But he unfortunately he got hurt. Right.
One.
But he didn't make it to the NFC Championship game. How many Super Bowls did Jimmy Garoppolo make it to?
1.
How many did Brock Purdy make it to?
1.
Now I understand first 2 years of the career, but as we speak right now, because we don't know what will happen later on, Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy have the same accomplishments. If you take a look at it, and you've always talked about a win is a win is a win. I like to go a little bit more in depth, but we take it at face value. Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo have accomplished the same exact thing on the 49ers because that team is so talented that it takes someone who's competent and who could run Kyle Shanahan's system and be effective. Once again, Matt Schaub with Kyle Shanahan's system got to the Pro Bowl when the Pro Bowl actually mattered. Matt Ryan was an MVP candidate and made a Super Bowl underneath Kyle Shanahan's offensive scheme. So Kyle Shanahan's able to form these quarterbacks and make them very, very effective, very, very good. And then add on top of that, I'll give him credit. I'll give Cam Newton credit. These are incredible players. I don't think anyone could dispute that. McCaffrey, Williams on the offensive line, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, all great yards after the catch guys and can really dominate. And then on the defensive side is Bosa, Warner, Greenlaw. And then I would also include Charvarius Ward, great lockdown cornerback. And maybe if you want to add Armstead as well, you could add him on the defensive front. This team is super talented. I don't think anyone should be shocked that the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl. Because if they didn't, that would be underwhelming. And I could also say that Brock Purdy, if you just add on top of the talent, I think McCaffrey, and I've talked about this before, McCaffrey is more valuable to the team than Purdy is. Because think of it, in the Raven game, Purdy threw 4 interceptions and looked horrible. He got benched in that game. He was hurt. You could argue whatever the case may be. McCaffrey still had over 100 yards in that game. He was still performing. He still scored the only touchdown when Purdy was out there.
When it mattered most and the lights were brightest and the 49ers were behind 24-7, who brought him back and had him win?
Purdy was the quarterback when that happened. Purdy was the quarterback.
He made the plays. He didn't have any turnovers. His passing was very accurate.
At that time, he didn't have any turnovers.
He improvised and ran when he needed to for big gains and first downs. I think he played up to the game, up to the light when the lights were the brightest. The other thing I would say about Cam Newton, he compared Brock Purdy to other, as he called, game managers, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, and Tua. Well, I would say I don't think Dak Prescott is a game manager. I don't think he's a game manager. He is a prolific passer, right? And he can run too. And he assesses the situation, and he changes the plays at the line of scrimmage a lot, and he runs when he needs to, when he sees that the receivers are covered. And Jared Goff certainly isn't a game manager because Dan Gamble is constantly gambling in the games, going for it on 4th down,
right,
doing all kinds of uncharacteristic and unconventional things. How can Jared Goff be a game manager? I don't see that at all. And Tua, I think that maybe there's a little truth to that because they didn't want him to get a concussion again this year. They kind of protected him a little bit, I think, and that had something to do with the play calling. But I just think Cam Newton is totally off base here.
Well, and then some people like to criticize.
Do you think Jared Goff is a game manager?
I think. See, here's the problem with that, right? Because the way Cam Newton described a game manager is you're not a top 3 player on your offense or on your team, and you're not the best player on your offense.
There's only one quarterback out there playing at a time.
But that's how Cam Newton defined a game manager versus a game changer. A game changer is a top 3 player on your team and the number 1 or 2 guy on your offense. When it comes to Jared Goff, you could argue Amon-Ra St. Brown. You could argue Jahmyr Gibbs this season. I mean, he was the most... You could argue Penei Sewell, an offensive lineman.
I disagree.
No, but I will say this. Against the 49ers, he completed 5 of 7 third downs in the first half, and he looked really good. They were tearing up that 49er defense. But I will contest this as well. The big-time plays were Jameson Williams had a 42-yard run. You also had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery getting crucial first downs. But Jared Goff was the one executing a decent amount of those third downs as well. So and that's the problem. If you define it by Cam Newton's logic, then Jared Goff is a bridge game manager.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the quarterback is a unique position on a team. You can't.
Correct.
You really can't compare. I think you can compare quarterbacks on other teams, but comparing the quarterback's talent to other players on the team, they don't handle the ball on every play.
Correct.
The quarterback handles the ball on every play.
Correct.
A defensive player doesn't do that at all.
Right.
They barely see
to.
They hoping to, but they hardly ever see the ball.
Right.
So how can Brock Purdy be the 9th best player on the team with 3 defensive players ahead of him when they never touch the ball? That to me makes no sense at all. I'm sorry. You could compare Brock Purdy to other quarterbacks.
Right.
That's valid to me because they handle the ball on every play. Not these other players don't. So I don't think that's a valid comparison.
Now, here's where it gets a little bit dicey. And I think we should go through this. It's who would you take Brock Purdy over? And we talk about Josh Allen. I wouldn't. Personally, I wouldn't. Tua, probably. Because I think Purdy is better as a quote-unquote game manager within his system than Tua is in the Dolphins' system with Tyreek Hill. We saw he was extremely dependent on Tyreek Hill this entire season. Lamar Jackson. Would you take Purdy over Lamar Jackson?
No.
I wouldn't either. Then you go...
Give me some more comparisons.
Joe Burrow. I would say Joe Burrow's a game changer now.
No, I wouldn't take him.
And then we go, I think C.J. Stroud, we showed he can, like the difference between C.J. Stroud and Brock Purdy is the talent is not to the level of the 49ers, and we've already seen C.J. Stroud fight through adversity.
I wouldn't take Purdy over C.J. Stroud.
Really?
Nope. Because C.J. Stroud's a rookie, and he showed that he's...
now we're seeing Purdy fighting through adversity now, though.
He was considered... He could have been considered for most valuable player at one point during the year.
He was.
Yeah. So he's a unique talent. And I put him ahead. I would put him ahead of Purdy, given that he's only a rookie.
Wow. Yeah. Mahomes, no, I'll answer that for you.
No.
This one's interesting. Justin Herbert. Would you take
Purdy
over?
I put Purdy.
I think I would as well.
Yeah.
I think I would as well. Dak Prescott, yes.
Yes.
Jared Goff.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, a lot like
Daniel Jones.
Oh,
yes.
God. Oh, God. That's not even a question. How about Matt Stafford?
I would because he's so much younger. And where he is in his career compared to where Stafford was at the same point, Purdy, I think, has a chance to be better than Stafford.
So right now, we're saying Purdy is like a top 10 quarterback in the league.
I think so.
And if we're talking about talent alone, not effectiveness or whatever, talent alone, like Josh Allen arm strength, Mahomes arm strength, Lamar Jackson's mobility, he's a middle of the pack guy. He does have a pretty nice arm. His mobility is underrated, but it's not to the level of a Mahomes.
He runs when he has to.
Right. And
he doesn't choose to run first.
Right. And that's
sometimes Lamar does that.
He should have done that in the playoff game.
Should have done it more in the playoff game.
Right. So I think if we're talking about, success for your team, I would say, like, I had Brock Purdy as, I think, the number 6 quarterback at the very peak of this season. Now, going into next season...
It's pretty high.
It is pretty high, but he was playing at a super high level. Number 1 in basically every statistical category.
Where would you put him compared to Josh Allen?
I would say, if I'm ranking the top 5 quarterbacks off the top of my head, right, it would be Mahomes 1, Burrow 2. I still think Burrow healthy. He is the only guy who and really the Bengals in general, have been the only team to really bother Mahomes and the Chiefs. So I have to put Burrow at number 2. Then I would probably put Josh Allen 3. I don't love what I saw from Hurts. I would put Lamar 4. And then it's really up for debate between Herbert, and then you could argue Hurts maybe, but I really don't love what I saw. Was he playing hurt the entire season? Maybe. But that offense did not look the same.
Yeah.
So that number 5 spot would be a battle probably between Herbert, Hurts, and you could probably throw in another quarterback.
Josh Allen has a lot of talent, but his head, he gets overhyped.
He does.
In games, and he makes mistakes. And when he starts making mistakes, they snowball. I think that's a problem for him in the red zone. Right. He makes too many mistakes.
Last season, he led the league in red zone interceptions.
Yeah.
The reason why I have to keep him at least within the top 5, if not the top 3, is the numbers. Like he gets like 4,400 yards. He led the league in touchdowns or close to it. Like the numbers say he's a top 3 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, well.
So
what's the number that means the most? The wins.
I'll give you that.
In the playoffs, they have been failures. In the playoffs, they haven't gotten to the championship game.
I'm not going to dispute that, but I'm going to say I more so disagree with Cam Newton's take than I agree with it. There are some parts I agree with it, and this negative connotation around game managers. You take a look at some of the game managers in the NFL, or at one point some of these players were called game managers. Like I guarantee you, Manning was called a game manager. Brady called a game manager. There are a couple quarterbacks out there that are very successful and called game managers. We just saw Jared Goff take his team to the NFC Championship game. He's being called a game manager. Like game managers, I think it's used in a negative connotation, when really you don't lose your team the game. Most of the time, if you're a game manager, you don't lose your team the game. Game changers, I think, are very volatile.
That's right. They take a high. Their risk level is higher.
Right.
They take more risk
because you have to. Sometimes you have to. So I would say we both disagree with Cam Newton's take on Brock Purdy being the 10th, or, on his podcast, he only listed 9 players. So,
I mean, if you were to take Mahomes versus Purdy,
I'll take Mahomes 10 times.
Mahomes is definitely not a game manager.
Correct.
And so if you looked at those two compared, you would say, yeah, Brock Purdy's more a game manager than Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
For sure. Right? If you compared Lamar Jackson to Brock Purdy, right? That's Lamar is not a game
Lamar
manager.
Is a game changer.
He's a game changer, right? Joe Burrow, he was hurt.
He was hurt.
He's been hurt 2 seasons now. He's been hurt for a better part of the season. So I don't know whether he. I guess in the year they went to the Super Bowl, I call him a game changer.
Absolutely,
right?
He had no offensive line.
He had no offensive line, getting sacked all the time, and still making the plays. So I guess I'd put him there. Matthew Stafford.
I'll say this. I think he was a game changer, but the Lions in general were not the good enough team to make it to the playoffs.
But how about on the Rams? Do you think he's a game changer on the Rams?
I think that Super Bowl year, 100% he was a game changer. That defense obviously helped. But on the offensive side, he was dashing at the Cooper Cup every single damn day.
Yeah.
And I would say, he was more of a game changer that year. And think about this year. You saw a lackluster defense that picked it up in the back half of the season, an offensive line that was depleted last season. It seemed to play better this season, and Matthew Stafford had a pretty good year.
Well, they got their running game going. That helped
as well
Stafford
as Puka Nacua, all of a sudden 5th round pick, having had like the best rookie season that a receiver's ever had. So, it's just an interesting thing about. But we disagree with Cam Newton's take. All right, let's get into some news that has been disputed for the past couple days. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.